In this example, we will discuss fragments, and this is the app that we are going to discuss. So you have fragment number 1 and fragment number 2. If I click on this, then this image appears. If I click on this, then the another image appears. If I click on like, then the likes for this image, that is Apple's image, is increasing. And if I click on this, then the likes for this image is increasing, right? Android is increasing. So let's see how we can do this in our code. So the way you use fragments is that fragments are basically they are used to create views which you can use and which you can basically show to the users during runtime. So how I have done this is I have first I'll show you the layout that I have created. This is the layout, activity underscore main. This is the layout here. It's a linear layout, orientation is vertical, and then there's another linear layout nested inside it, which has got two buttons inside it, fragment 1 and fragment 2. Then there are two text views that I've put inside this layout. These text views take care of the scores of number of likes that have been that have been received. So these are text 0 and text 0 for initial initial number is 0 for both of these. And then there's a frame layout which will host the fragment. Now let's go to main activity. So this is how the layout looks when you prepare it. This is how the layout looks. Not to mention, you can click on these and then see what is the area that this linear layout is holding on to. Then this is the area that this linear layout holds on to. These are individual buttons, then relative layout, text views, and then the fragment place, which is basically the frame layout. Let's go to the main activity now. This text view, the two text views that are going to take care of the scores are here, TV score 1 and TV score 2. We've created two references for them and then created two objects out of them. The IDs are same as they were mentioned in the layout. And then we use fragment manager here. It's a class that can be used to create objects and handle the fragments basically. So you make an object fm and you make the object through calling get fragment manager. This returns an instance of fragment manager which you will be using. And then fragment transaction is another class that for object and its object is used to start dealing with transactions. So fm.begin transaction is what starts it. And then you call tx.replace. Now this replace, what it does is it is going to replace the first entity with the second entity. So the first entity is nothing but fragment place. This is actually the frame layout that I showed you. This frame layout, this is the entire fragment underscore place ID here. So I'm going to replace this thing with this thing. Now what exactly is this thing? This is actually a fragment which will be produced during runtime, and this fragment view will be shown at this place. So that is what it is all about. And then you commit it. So committing is important because that basically confirms that you want all these three steps to take place. Finally, the onCreate method ends here, and that's when and this is what user gets to see when they open the app, right? So you want to make sure that when the user opens the app, they should see some image there. In our case, we have mentioned the first fragment here. Now we'll discuss this. What exactly is this new simple fragment? New simple fragment is nothing but a class which is extending fragment, right? And new simple fragment was nothing but the constructor of this class simple fragment. Now whenever you will call that constructor, the onCreateView method will get called. The onCreateView method has a return type of view, and this view is what we will be using to display on the frame layout. So when I said that this frame layout will host a fragment, what I really meant was that this frame layout or fragment place will host a view which will be given by this new simple fragment. So here, as you can see, onCreateView method will be called. So that's how it happens. The OS calls the onCreateView method of fragment whenever you call the constructor of the fragment. And this method has got some three input arguments that it takes. We will not be using any of these arguments specifically. What we are going to do is we are going to create a view here. View v is equal to inflator is basically coming from here, layout inflator class. This takes care of inflating, or if you give them an XML, then they will inflate it, they will make a layout of it, out of it, and provide it for usage. So this is the inflator class, and sorry, inflator object, and then you call the inflate method on it. An inflate method contains this. The first argument basically takes care of uh, the the layout that you want to show there, right? So this is the layout that we want to be shown, and if I were to take you to this layout, then I'll just show this to you. This is a linear layout which is hosting the image view and a button, right? So there's a button called as like button here, text is like, and we have given an ID here, and then you have an image view here, right? So this image view had the Android picture, and then if I were to show you the another fragment, then this fragment has another picture of Apple, right? So now going back to simple fragment, basically this simple fragment and simple fragment 2 are very identical. The only difference is in the images, right? So we gave them the layout. The layout will be inflated and will be stored in a view object, that is v. After that, we are going to wire, or rather we're going to define the button be like one, like we gave a reference here, and then we defined it. Now we define the button like this. We typecast the button here, and then we put a v here. V is basically, it stands for the view object here that we have created here. Why we are putting v here is, if you have watched the previous video for dialogues, then you have an idea why we have done this here, but if you haven't, then I'll give you some explanation. So basically, this is the view that we are creating, which is getting inflated from this layout, and I need to make sure that this definition or this wiring that is being done has to be wired into this view, because this view object contains this button actually, right? So you need to put a v here. In case of dialogues, we had put, in case of custom dialogue, we had put dialogue here, dialogue object. So similarly here you have to put the v here, and then we are putting a listener on this, set on click listener, and what we are doing is, whenever it gets clicked, there's this text view TV. Now what is this text view? This is the text view from the activity, the main activity here, which had there were two text views there. So there were two text views for two different pictures. One was text score 1 and text score 2, right? So what we are doing is, we are making an object text view TV here with the first text view text score 1, and you need to call the method get activity. As you know, that fragments are basically attached to the respective activities. Whosoever activity that is the one which calls them, the fragment gets attached to them, right? So fragment got attached to this activity, main activity, and this get activity will return that main activity instance for this, and then you will be able to define a text view here. In text, we are storing whatever the current value of that text view is right now, and after that we are incrementing it by 1, and then we are setting the new value to the same text view. Please understand, this text view is in the main activity and not in the fragment, right? So in this entire code, the only the text view is the thing which is present inside the main activity, and rest everything is present inside the fragment layout. All right, same thing is being done with the simple fragment 2. This is exactly the same thing. There's no difference. The only difference is the text view that we will be choosing here. For this we will be choosing the second text view, because this like button has to update the text view too. Let me show this to you. So this is the text view which is getting handled by fragment number 1, and this is the text view which is getting handled by fragment number 2. So this is how we are handling the something which is going on the main activity through a fragment. So in this example, we saw how can you communicate from a fragment to an activity. Of course, there are a lot of other ways you could have done this, and like in Android, or for that matter in open source programming, there is no dearth of ways or methods that you can use, but this is one of the ways which can really work out well. So that's about this example. Let me show you this thing again. So uh, if I click on fragment 1 and I click on like, it is getting incremented by 1, and if I click on fragment number 2, then it gets incremented by 1, right? So this was the example for fragments. Do let me know if there's anything else that you would like me to prepare videos for. Please subscribe to the channel, and that's about it. Thank you.